On the show in Wheelspin, we drive a fully electric car, the Nissan LEAF. In Wheelspin, we ride the Harley-Davidson Breakout. In Face to Face, we meet Riccardo Patrese, the former F1 driver with a record number of F1 starts. And in Going in Style, we visit a fascinating Beetle museum. Nissan is one company which has been working on alternate fuel vehicles and specially battery-operated electric vehicles for well over a decade now. It was in 1997 at the Los Angeles International Auto Show that Nissan first showcased its electric vehicle, the Ultra. Eventually, about 200 units of the Ultra were built and sold, and in fact it took them almost another decade before another electric vehicle codenamed the EV11 was finally commercialized and came to be known as the LEAF, and launched in December of 2010 in the US and Japan. The word LEAF is actually an acronym for Leading Environmentally Friendly Affordable Family Car, and this is in fact exactly what the LEAF is today. For many years now, automobile manufacturers have been struggling to find a solution to conventional fossil fuel. Conventional fossil fuel obviously has its disadvantages. Sometimes it's very expensive, and the main reason is that it's just not environmentally friendly. So millions of man-hours and billions of dollars have been spent on the research, but unfortunately very few commercially viable alternatives have emerged. One of the few that has emerged is this. Nissan has been at the forefront of developing this technology, and what I have with me is a fully electric car, the LEAF, which has gone into production a few years back and is actually sold now as an electric car. Today I'm going to jump in behind the wheels and really see what an electric car feels like. The LEAF is a 5-door hatchback and is immediately recognizable by its distinct styling, with large low-beam LED headlights which consumes less energy than halogens, and splits to direct the airflow away from the door mirrors and makes it more aerodynamic. Even the bottom of the car has aerodynamic paneling to further reduce drag, and this makes the LEAF one of the most aerodynamic cars with a coefficient of drag of only 0.28. In fact, the main effort here has been to make it more efficient in terms of energy consumption as well as wind resistance, to ensure that the LEAF becomes a miserly consumer of all power that the lithium battery produces. If you step inside the LEAF here, you'll be hard put to tell that there is any difference between this and any other conventional car. It all looks very same and familiar, except when you look at the instrumentation. Instead of showing a conventional fuel gauge, it shows you the battery discharge. But other than that, there is hardly any difference. This LEAF here is positioned as a big hatchback, so obviously it comes with all the frills that you can expect from a car in this segment. Leather all around, steering wheel, leather wrapped seats. In fact, not only leather wrapped, it also comes with heating. Multifunction buttons on the steering wheel, a touchscreen display here with climate control. The LEAF here is positioned as a bigger hatchback, and if you were to expect all the frills that you would from a car in this class, then the LEAF has pretty much everything that you want. The electric motor in the car is powered by a set of onboard lithium batteries, which of course gets recharged by plugging into an external power source, and each driving cycle is of around 150 kilometers. But depending on how you drive and the speeds, the range can also vary a bit and can go up to 200 kilometers. And every time you use the brakes are regenerative and charge the batteries. Each full charging cycle takes about 8 hours, and the biggest challenge of course in the development of electric cars have been the battery life and the range, and somehow the LEAF is one of the first electric cars which has overcome this shortcoming and meets the threshold of acceptability in terms of viable driving range. Currently, the cost of the battery is very high, but over time the cost is expected to come down, and so will the cost of the car, giving a boost to electric cars of the future.
At present, Nissan offers a guarantee of 8 years or 160,000 kilometers of driving on the battery life in the US. But with proper usage, the battery life can go up to even 10 years. And of course, in terms of everyday cost of running the Leaf, it is one of the cheapest, with the cost coming to a little over 2 cents per kilometer.
When you first start driving the Leaf, the first thing that strikes you is the complete absence of any kind of sound. The cabin is really quiet, but then that's pretty much normal for any electric car. But that's where the dissimilarities end. The Leaf really drives well. It drives like any other conventional car. Once you press the pedal, the power really comes out. It doesn't feel sluggish, it doesn't feel slow, it's quite smooth and it accelerates very easily. The top speed on the Leaf is about 130 kilometers, which is good enough for everyday driving, even on the highways. The engine here is mated to a single-speed transmission, just with a drive function and a reverse function, which again simplifies things. It makes the car very easy to drive, especially in city traffic, and it doesn't really need any other input other than pressing the accelerator. The Leaf is set up quite well in terms of the suspension. The ride is very nice, so again it makes it very easy to be driven on an everyday basis. And there is plenty of space. It has got all the gizmos that you might look for in a bigger hatchback. So this is one car which is actually very usable. I feel it's a big pity that we will not see too many electric cars in India in the near future because we don't have the infrastructure. Electric cars is actually the solution to many things. Pollution, a lot of foreign exchange that we pay to import the crude oil, and of course, no noise. And this is where the future of motoring is headed to. Cars which are quiet, cars which are efficient, and cars, of course, which are cheap to run. And all this without really compromising on the performance bit. And this is what the Leaf is. In fact, it's a really nice car.
Till date, over 158,000 units of the Leaf has been sold, with the US almost accounting for almost half of them, followed by Japan. In Europe, it is Norway which is the biggest consumer, followed by UK.
After having driven the Leaf, all I can say is that it makes me very happy to see that years of efforts to find an alternate fuel has really paid off. The Leaf here is not on par with conventional cars. It is better than conventional cars in every way. It's really drivable, it's cheap, and it's zero pollution. The only limitation it really has is that it has a limited range of 150 kilometers, which I think with the battery technology improving, this should soon be extended. Unfortunately, as I said, we will not see this in India very soon because we don't have the infrastructure to charge electric cars. But one day, I hope sooner than later, we will develop an infrastructure for electric cars. And if that happens, I personally would be too happy to drive a car like the Leaf here.
The Leaf is priced at around US $22,000, and in India, if regular duties are to be applied, the landed cost will come to something around rupees 30 lakhs. But then if the government offers incentives and encourages electric zero-emission vehicles, then the cost can come down substantially. And it will be a good thing too for both environment as well as finding an alternative to fast running out and expensive fossil fuel.
What I have with me today is a machine which Harley-Davidson recently launched in India. And in true Harley tradition, this is also a machine which is really big. This is the Breakout. And what this machine really promises you is hours of easy riding and heads turning your way no matter where you ride. And I think the Breakout is a bike which is easily one of the best looking Harleys in a long time.
Harley-Davidson had launched the Breakout last year to add to their range of cruiser motorcycles. The Breakout is a bike which is clearly a machine designed to attract with its styling. It's not only big but stands out with its low stance, fat tires on beautifully sculpted alloy wheels and a twin set of black exhaust. And there is just the right amount of chrome to add to the expectation that a big cruiser also has to be a bit shiny. Overall, the Breakout is a good-looking bike which is sure to attract many.
The Breakout here is a long bike. Although in this bike you just see a single seat, but you can actually get a rear pillion seat as an accessory. It's designed like a cruiser to make sure that you ride for long hours. The handlebar is straight, the foot pegs here are placed aft like in true cruiser style, and the seating is really low. But in spite of everything, the Breakout really fails to be as comfortable as it really promises to be. And that, I think, is because the handlebar here is a bit too straight and placed a bit too far. Over long distance riding, you start feeling a bit tired. I think the remedy would be to move the handle back a little bit more for more comfortable cruiser style riding.
The riding position is what you would expect from a cruiser, but somehow it lacks the ergonomics. The distance between the handle and the seat is a bit too much, and consequently one has to lean forward to grab the handlebars, which on a long ride tends to become a bit uncomfortable.
The instrumentation here is very basic and uncomplicated. A single pod here to give you the speed readouts in analog and the RPM readouts in digital, and will also tell you when you eventually manage to get into the reserve, a yellow light will glow. Strangely, this bike does not even have a fuel gauge. What I feel this bike needs is some more information added to the instrument cluster here. The Breakout here is powered by a big 1690cc V-twin, which is mated to a 6-speed gearbox. And as far as Harley engine technology goes, this one is one of the better ones. In fact, produces a lot of torque, so low end is not a problem, accelerates quite fast, but still manages to get out of breath once you're on the highway around 150 km marks. So cruising is fine, but if you're looking at speeding, forget the Breakout. It's a true Harley in that sense.
When you accelerate the Breakout, the 130 Nm of torque which the engine produces without any interruption is bound to impress you. Add to this a thumping exhaust note and you feel exactly how you should feel if you ride a Harley. A sense that you have arrived in life, and with the sheer street, or should I say the highway presence of a big bike, the Breakout does make instant fans and inspires many to use their smartphone cameras instantly.
The Breakout actually rides quite well and handles quite confidently even at cruising speeds on the highway. And that's thanks mainly to the fat 240 tire sitting on the 18-inch wheel here. That's the upside of the story. The downside is that this fat tire also makes it a handful to maneuver through in city traffic or even to change directions at high speeds. If you are looking for two things, one is to buy a cruiser and the second one is to buy into the Harley-Davidson brand here, then I would strongly recommend that you don't look any further. Have a look at this Breakout here, because this is one bike which stands out even within the Harley-Davidson stable, simply because of the way she looks. She's an absolute stunner any which way you look at her. And in terms of rideability though, I will give her a B, simply because no Harley really rides that well. In fact, if you are looking for technology or even great rideability, then you have to look at some other brands which will offer you that. But then you don't buy a Harley simply because you are looking for technology. You buy a Harley to belong to a cult. And if that's what you're going to do, then I strongly recommend have a look at this Breakout.
The Breakout is priced at over Rs 16 lakhs, and this makes it somewhat expensive. But then again, given its bulk and a big 1.6-litre engine, it might not appear so very exorbitant. And moreover, the Breakout doesn't really have much competition except from the Triumph LT, which is similarly priced. But then the Breakout is a Harley and the brand has many fans, so chances are it will find plenty of takers.
The key was that I always spoke for myself with all the team owners, and I think I put a lot of passion on my work, and probably also the ability to set up the cars in the correct way, because I was there not always on the top, but sometimes on low level, and I think I could survive when I was low, just because of the reputation that I had, the good reputation I had inside Formula One.
You had a lot of teammates, you had a lot of people who drove with you. Who are the guys you remember as characters of F1?
I mean, I drove late 70s to beginning of 90s, so I had experience with drivers like Lauda, James Hunt, Emerson Fittipaldi, and I finished with Michael Schumacher, that was my teammate. And in the middle of all these years, I drove with teammates that they were world champion, as Alan Jones, Nelson Piquet, Nigel Mansell, Michael Schumacher. Well, I changed much while I was racing, because I started with the cars of the 70s, that there was not much, there was no electronic involved, and not a super sophisticated aerodynamic. Then the first thing that started to change was the aerodynamic, because the aerodynamic became more sophisticated. We started to have wing cars with the skirts, so the aerodynamic started to improve. Late 79 with the Lotus, and then the Williams, and then after these wing cars, so aerodynamic get better efficiency, the turbo came, that was also a news. So we had the turbo years, and after the turbo we went back to the aspirate engine, but then the electronic started to come. So I could see really all this kind of evolution that was a big step forward since 1977 when I started to 93. Now electronic, of course, makes the most in Formula One, and it's a completely different way of driving a car, because there are hundreds of buttons to press every day for a driver. It looks a little bit more a video game than driving a car.
The Auto Museum of Volkswagen in Wolfsburg is just the right place if you want to trace the history of one of the most popular cars they have ever made, the Beetle. The Beetle is an iconic machine developed on the orders of one Adolf Hitler, who wanted to present the people of Germany with a car which was affordable yet practical enough to meet their daily requirements. And to make such a car, none other than Ferry Porsche was entrusted with the job. The result is a car which became the largest selling car on this planet and continued to be in production in its original shape and layout till the turn of this century, some 75 years later. And now it's a collector's item for many. If you love your Beetles and the carbon gears, then you will be amazed at what I'm going to show you next. This is a place which has Beetles ranging over half a century, and they have been painstakingly restored back to their prime health and all put under one roof. And if you're wondering where is this, then I can tell you this is the place where you expect it to be, the home of Volkswagen in Wolfsburg. And this is the museum created for the carbon gears and the Beetles. The other iconic car which Volkswagen made is the Carbon Ghia, which with its unmistakably sporty outline is of course many a collector's favorite, and I was delighted to see so many of them representing many generations and many years, and of course some which were very special. I think the Carbon Ghia is one of the best looking cars ever made by Volkswagen, and I simply love them, even if they happen to come in color like this.
This is a car which actually went racing, produced 209 PS out of a 4-cylinder engine. Pretty fast for those times with a top speed of over 170 kilometers.
The Beetle is one car which dominated the market at one time by its sheer numbers, and there were many owners who chose to make theirs somewhat different. The result here is a huge variety of Beetles, and some become like this one, with a stamp collection from the world over pasted on its bodywork, or this one which was converted into a wicker basket, and another one which for bodywork used plenty of wood. And this one had a different idea about shedding weight. It simply shed off the body panels and used just a metal frame instead. Creative owners found different ways to dress up their Beetles and make them stand out.
If you thought Beetles were small, cute, but boring cars just meant for everyday commute, then perhaps you haven't seen something like this. 255 brake horsepower, a 6-cylinder engine with a top speed of 210 kilometers. Where else do you drive it but on the racetrack? Maybe you haven't seen this, and maybe you haven't seen this one, and that one, and that one. Interesting stuff what Beetles can be.
I leave it to you to decide which one you like best. But for me, it was a treat to see different generations of one of the greatest cars ever made, restored so lovingly by the museum staff and all housed under one roof, to give you an idea of the evolution of the Beetle over the years.
As I said, if you love your Beetle and you happen to be in this part of the world, make a trip down to Wolfsburg and spend a day being one-on-one with the Beetle. The Beetle is one of the most remarkable cars ever made, which withstood half a century of use and even at times abuse, but looks as beautiful as the day she was born.